Hi, this is Bob Coppage, CEO of Simplex-IT, Couchenour Geek, and welcome to another episode of BizTech Twists, where we take a look at business technology, but we look at it from a slightly different perspective. And I can't think of a more different perspective than my guest today, Scott Couchenour, who gave me the best way to pronounce his name. It's Pepsi an hour. Anyway,
we're close enough.
You're close enough. Scott, thanks for agreeing to this, making this a mistake, obviously.
I'm honored, I think.
Yeah, it's
and we'll see.
Honor-ish. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it all started when I was conceived many, many years ago.
Many.
And went downhill from there.
Yeah. And here we are.
So my dad started a business in late 60s. I joined him in 89 when I was 24. So you do the math. Spent 24 years as COO. Then 2008 happened to our family's business. And we went on a 5-year slide. And the board of directors elected me to become CEO to reinvent our 40-year-old business. I was the youngest of 4 brothers, and we had a sister younger than me. And so I spent the next 2.5 years reinventing our company, trying to figure out how we could do this. And without going into detail there, unless you want to, we were succeeding. We were beginning to do things differently, and it was looking hopeful. But the 5-year slide that we went through made us vulnerable to one project that had to start in June of 2015. We had $20 million under contract in design. We made money when it went into construction. But we needed this one project to start to bridge us until we started getting more projects. And it was June of 2015. I get a call from the project manager expecting to say, hey, we got it started. Got a call from the project manager saying, hey, the pastor had been having an affair with his secretary, and it became public in June of 2015.
Okay.
Which doesn't necessarily kill a construction project, but it delayed it beyond what we could afford. So we closed the business after 44 years. I was 50 years old. My wife and I both worked in the company. We no longer had a business. Not only I had no career. My only career was almost 30 years in our family business. So after about 6 months of extreme Chapter 7-ish stuff, I went through a 2-year identity crisis because I attached my identity to my career, which then was gone, and I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know who was going to hire this old, bald, white guy. And I didn't even know if I wanted to work for anybody. So I took all of my operations experience and all of my CEO, my little couple of years of intense CEO experience, and I had been coaching people since 2007. That's a story in itself. Back in 1999, being the youngest brother, someone had an idea that we ought to get into coaching for our employees. And all my brothers looked at me and said, Scott, you do it. Being the younger brother, I was charged with doing a lot of different things. But it turned out I loved the concept of coaching. I ended up getting my own coach, and then I ended up getting certified as a coach. And I would coach people on the side all through those years. So I had all these ingredients when this happened. And after I came to terms with my identity, I started to put a recipe together. And I'm a man of faith. I think that a lot of it was wisdom beyond my years given to me. And now, when I began to look at all these ingredients and put them together, I determined that I would be the partner I wish I had had in July of 2015. I would have saved myself a lot of time and energy and headaches and a lot of stress. So went through that for about 3-4 years. I'd coach anybody on anything, and as those listening in marketing would tell you, that's not a good recipe to get business. Although I thought it was. I really thought that if I would just coach anybody on anything, flip the light on, everybody would come to me.
Absolutely.
Right? Not so. So I eventually woke up and decided to agree with marketers telling me you need to niche. What would you say, niche or niche? I never know what.
I think it's Neek.
Neek. Okay, I neeked down and got a branding coach. Spent 4 months with her. That revealed that I was uniquely gifted to work with people in the Gen X crowd. with 40s and 50-year-olds. Because what happened to me was right in the middle of my 50th year, right in 40s and 50s. That led to revealing the lifespan of an American male is about 78.5. Females live a little longer than that. So I took an 80-year lifespan, broke it into 4 segments, 4 quadrants, 4 quarters, 4 quarters.
Okay.
And the first quarter is your learning quarter. That's when you're going to school, you're being nurtured and all that for your first 20 years. Your 20s and 30s, I call your building quarter. You're building your life, your family, your career, your name, all that kind of stuff. Then you hit your 40s and 50s, your third quarter. I call that the reaping quarter. You begin to for the most part, the flywheel is turning. You've got a family, you've got a career, you've got a name. Maybe you've started to pull down or pay down some of the debt that you incurred and all that. But there is this proverbial or metaphorical slope that you're no longer really climbing. You're beginning to just taper off and maybe dip down a little bit. So I work with business owners in their third quarter, reaching 45, 50, 55, maybe 60, and they're beginning to say, what's wrong with me? I can't keep up like I used to. The business I started, which I absolutely love, it's my baby, I feel tethered to it now. I don't know what to do. So here I am, the partner I wish I had had in that disruptive time that I was going through. I now work with business owners doing that very thing. What we do is we build a master plan for their fourth quarter. And that master plan can mean all kinds of stuff. So what I tell my client, early on in my client's history with me, I said, imagine we're standing across the street from 1,500 acres. There's woods, there's trees, there's water, meadow, there's some hills and all that. That 1,500 acres is your fourth quarter. What do you want to do with this 1,500 acres? Let's start working that. And so we develop an aspiration worksheet, and we basically go from master plan to blueprints for the first phase to actually constructing and building. So I'm pulling a lot of construction background that I had drawn, although as COO, I was in insurance, safety bonding, all that stuff. My job back in the day was wake up in the morning and then ask, what's the worst that can happen to our company? And then try to mitigate that. That was my job. So I'm working that angle with my clients.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What was that?
What I said was, it all started on the personal side. I'll tell you, I've got 2 kids, 34, 31, and they're both married. They've given me 3 grandkids. And I always say, as you've probably heard other people say, if I knew how much fun my grandkids would have been, I'd have had them first.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In my case, I outsourced my kids. My wife and I are both on our second marriage, and she had 3 daughters, and I had 2 cats. And I thought that was an even trade.
Kind of a Uber kind of.
Yeah, just sort of. So now I'm on 6 grandkids now. So but there's 2 things I think that I actually honed in on. One is that if I had you want to be the coach you wish you had. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many people, whether you call it from the coaching standpoint, the consulting standpoint, or the like, there's almost I'm using the lack of resource, but I'm going to use my experience to basically build that resource for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of cases where somebody looks at something negative that happened and immediately jumps into that, well, my life is now screwed up. I can't get it. There's no learning from this. There's no positive. But you were able to find it. I think a lot of people do. We're able to find that positive and build something out of it.
I was, but I can't sit here and tell you that, oh, well, I lost my career. Let's start building something new, right? It really was a cave experience. If you're familiar with the hero's journey, Iron Man, one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
in the cave looking around. They got these little rusted pieces and parts, and ends up starting putting something together. And that is really
right
exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It was putting this together and saying, wait a minute, okay, I've got to take the jump. That was a huge thing. I have to take a leap from employee, from W-2 to 1099.
Right.
And make it myself. And that was a huge decision. That was not an easy decision.
Yep. No, absolutely. And you also have that issue of the working on the business versus working for the business, and all that good stuff. The other thing I thought was interesting is that whole concept of how do we. There are so many options, and you and I, when we first talked about having this conversation, we were talking about the exit plan and the exit strategy, and how different that concept is today, and being 2023, versus what it was like pre-pandemic and pre-everything else, let alone where you are as far as in your own personal or professional life.
Right.
I think one of the things when we talk about the pandemic, we talk about all the supply chain things, we talk about all the changes. It has just totally created so many additional opportunities and so many traditional challenges, especially in some of the traditional construction, manufacturing, all that kind of fun stuff, that you have these great opportunities and you also have these great risks. And resources that help organizations deal with that, I think are great and underutilized and undervalued.
I think you're right. I think I was just talking to someone this morning, and they said, what a different world we're in now.
Yeah.
In so many different angles. You're referring to the threats or the opportunities and the challenges. If you take a typical SWOT analysis and look at the opportunities and the threats, they're really linked together, where you are looking for where's the threat and the opportunity, and where's the opportunity and the threat.
Right.
And I think there's a healthy way to go about this. I think you have to go through the emotions first. You have to reconcile, okay, I've had a disruption in my life. Some of us, maybe sick and tired of talking the pandemic.
Right.
It's just life before 2020 and life after 2020. And It's
Yep.
two totally different things. And I think a lot of people are sick of talking about that. But it's reality. And the sooner, monsters shrink when you look them in the eye, and monsters grow when you turn your back on them. So let's face whatever it is that you're facing, and look for the opportunities, recognizing there's threats behind it, and look at the threats, and look for the opportunities behind them. I don't know if I've totally confused your listeners now or not, because I've confused myself.
There's that one guy in Iowa.
Yeah.
He gets confused by everything. Anyway.
Iowa guy.
But here's the challenge, is especially in some of the industries that are dependent upon technology, we have, if we use 2020 as the balance stone, the entire industry grew up, and all of the people who are in most of the positions grew up never knowing anything different. And so, for example, manufacturing world, the just-in-time inventory concept, and all of the purchasing processes, we never knew another way to deal with things except for that. And so you grow up thinking, literally grow up professionally as well as chronologically. You grow up thinking it will always be this way. It'll just be slightly sharper. The numbers will be more finely tuned. And the other thing that I find interesting is that, and this is true for myself, is you develop and you mature the company, but do you develop and mature yourself? Because you may sit back and go, okay, I have this 10-year plan, I have this X-year plan, whatever, as far as growth of the organization, and here's our revenue goals, here's our profit goals. But how am I, as CEO, going to be different 2-3 years from now and more mature? because I'm a mature guy.
Yeah, right. I have to be. I'm older.
Absolutely.
Right? Old equals mature. Right?
I think so. Yes.
Well, there's 10 years of experience,
Yep.
and then there's 1 year of experience 10 times. So,
But that's actually a good point, because we can sit back and we can say we made all these great plans, but if I'm not advancing myself as well, and that advance may be the exit strategy, do I pull myself out of the positions or out of the roles of responsibility that I'm not that good at? Not that there are any, but for other people.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
present company excluded.
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
But how do I? I need to take that into account, right?
There is an exit planning institute, believe it or not. There is an organization called the Exit Planning Institute. They did a study in 2000.
Okay, I'm sorry. This sounds like an assassin guild.
Also known as KGB.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Exit
Absolutely.
planning. We're going to plan your exit.
In fact, we may already have. Are you on our list?
Now that you mention that, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, in 2013, they did a study, and I believe, don't quote me. I mean,
Too late.
Okay. They interviewed 1,511 business owners who had recently sold in the last couple of years. And they found that 75% of them were dissatisfied with the way the exit played out. Okay. 75% were dissatisfied with how their exit took place a year later. As they look back on it, they were not satisfied.
Okay.
Another statistic, 5% of them were not happy with the proceeds. Only 5%.
So it wasn't
were
the
happy.
money.
It was money, and it was other things. And what they did was that led to four drivers that are present when there's a happy exit.
Okay.
I don't know all four, but I'll tell you two. One of them is there was a plan for life after the business sold.
On the part of the owner.
On the part of the owner.
Okay.
Right. They had a plan. They knew what they were going to do. And I think the 75% of those owners, previous owners, just had no plan. They thought golf, garden, and then they went, uh-oh, I'm not as happy playing golf now that I've played golf for 4 weeks in a row. I'll try gardening. Uh-oh, I don't like gardening like I thought I would. I don't know what I'm to do. Who am I? See, a lot of parallels with what I went through in the cave and what a lot of business owners do if they don't think about this ahead of time. What are you going to do? What's your master plan? The second thing is that they didn't take into account was how are the employees going to be handled? You know, how can we build this sale if that's what the exit strategy includes? How can I build in language to the sale that would take care of the people that I have come to? They're almost like family to me.
Right.
And that also played into the dissatisfaction because they watched their employees get canned or let go or whatever it was, just not treated as well as they would have treated them.
Mm-hmm. So you basically have, so if you think about it, there's two, and I'm simplifying this tremendously for your sake.
Please.
Yeah,
Please do.
It's what I do.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. But you basically have the one resource who is the exiting, usually CEO, and then you've got the resource, the remaining, for a point, the employees. Mm-hmm. And there's that whole issue of now what?
Right.
And if now what isn't planned for,
right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got every T crossed and every I dotted, but at least you've paid some attention, some resource to it. Mm-hmm. That becomes the challenge. And I think one of the things is that, and this may be piggybacking on what you're saying, is often people think that a transition, it's an on-off switch. It's a binary. Mm-hmm. You know, as of Friday, I own the business. As of Monday, XYZ owns the business. That's it. There's no more to it.
I get to sleep in.
Right. Or garden or golf. Which, by the way, if you ever, because I'm not a golfer, I never have been, never will be. So if you want the secret to stopping when someone goes on and on about golf, just talk about the windmill and getting the ball past the windmill.
Understood.
They will change the subject. They will not be crazy about it. Or how hard it is often to get the ball into the clown's mouth. Right. But if you do, you win a free game.
And it's exhilarating. It is the greatest feeling in the world.
Absolutely.
I understand.
Yeah. They will not want to talk to you about golf ever again. So I think it's important to add additional pieces of value to this podcast. And one of these days I will do so.
That was free.
That was free. Yes. Now on. But moving on. But it gets into that whole thing about, and to a certain degree, it gets to that transition of we're transitioning the company or growing or maturing the company, but are we growing or maturing your role in the company?
Yeah. Well, part of the, if you will indulge me for a second, okay.
One Mississippi. Moving on.
The one part of the reinvention of our company, I'll tell you how we were going to organizationally run our company had it not died. And by the way, it was a death and resurrection kind of thing. I am able to help multiple businesses with this business model that I thought was just designed to help one business. Mm. So a lot of good has come out of this, but I basically flipped the organizational chart upside down. When I was given let me back up.
I've heard that term.
Have you? Okay.
But what does it mean? Because I've tried to pin down some people on that.
Okay.
And you get into some loosey-goosey type of thing. So
no.
Tell me what that means.
So the industrial age. This is all my opinion. It's not backed on research, but the industrial age.
I'm not interested.
Okay. Manufacturing widgets, things that come down an assembly line. You do the same thing over and over again, right. And then, which is no wonder why the baby boomers wanted to retire. The term retirement was not just a fund, it was a lifestyle change. And no wonder 30 years at the same spot on an assembly line, no wonder you'd want to get out of that.
Right.
Right? So the industrial age had its own command and control necessity. CEOs at the top, then you have line managers, middle line, and then all the workers. Because the workers, newsflash, human resources used to be human relations. It got morphed into human resources. So think about that, HR, human resources. We have our steel, we have our plastics, we have all of our widgets, and we have our people.
Right.
They're all like resources. So if someone was too slow, pull them out, put somebody else in. It was command and control, top down. You worked your way up in the business.
Right.
I flip it upside down because in a service industry, that doesn't work. So here's what that means. You work your way down in the company. And every level you go down, you carry more weight. And when you carry more weight, your success is defined by the success of those above you. So it's highly servant-oriented. I want to help you succeed. That's my job. I support you. And you work your way down in the business. So you have this upside-down cone. Think of a top, a spinning top. At the very bottom is what I call the pivot. The pivot, there are two types of pivot. There's a pivot point, and there's a pivot base. The pivot point is the CEO who doesn't take care of himself or herself, doesn't have any advisors, no board of directors, no key person life insurance. So in that case, it's a pivot point. So the entire organization teeters on the success or failure of that one lone CEO. But when you start adding a board of directors, a board of advisors, whatever you want, a coach, key person life insurance, you start taking care of yourself, eating right and all that, you begin to create a base. So the CEO is now a base pivot, a pivot base, making the organization much more solid. And you can take it even further. If that CEO even grows further and further and becomes better and better, the whole organization grows. And when that thing is spinning like a top, it can create what I call spin-off. Spin-off is like the centrifugal force. You remember being a freshman on I do, being a skinny little freshman on a merry-go-round, and the seniors just get you going until you can't hold on anymore. And you just spin off, and you go rolling off down the road. Spin-off in a well-run organization with a pivot base is like you can do things at cost. Like in our construction industry, we design and build churches. We could do something for a ministry at no cost to them because we were running so well that we could do things that we otherwise could never do.
Cool. And I want to talk about that a little bit, and especially from a service standpoint. But first, I want to do a commercial break because I also want to talk about centripetal acceleration, not centrifugal force. We'll be right back.
Are you fed up with reactive IT providers who take too long to respond, let problems fester, and nickel and dime you for every little thing? Say goodbye to those frustrations by choosing Simplex-IT, home of Amazon's best-selling author and BizTech Twist host Bob Coppage. As Northeast Ohio's friendly neighborhood MSP, Simplex-IT has been providing top-notch managed and co-managed IT services since 2007, supporting hundreds of clients locally and across the United States. With a managed service provider like Simplex-IT, you'll benefit from proactive maintenance, 24/7 monitoring, and streamlined technology that will help you grow your business. Visit simplex-it.com for more information and to start experiencing stress-free IT today.
All right. Sorry about the commercial, but, it's what we do here. Anyway, back with Scott Couchenour, and we are talking about pyramids and centrifugal force, which is a myth, by the way. It is actually centripetal acceleration that causes the thing that we call centrifugal force. And this is one of the reasons I don't get invited to cool parties.
I see that. I understand.
Yeah, on both sides.
That's why you party alone.
Yeah, on so many levels. So many levels. But it's interesting because it gets down into that whole development. And organizations, as they grow, they have to develop, the employees have to develop, and leadership has to develop. Because like you were saying with the widgets, back in the day, however you want to define it, the workforce was a commodity. It was muscle.
Right.
That was it. So you learn how to do these things, and if we replaced you for whatever reason, we would find someone else who would do it. And that made your organization, your widgets, your product, your everything pretty much a commodity, or you had a secret sauce that you didn't share with anybody else.
Right.
That's really hard to do anymore. And so we have to invest. If you're going to look to expand your organization, if you're going to look to succeed, we have to expand our value of our workforce so that we're enhancing their productivity, that we're developing them further as well as ourselves.
Right. Right. One of the drivers of value in a business is what's called hub and spoke. If let's say I started a business 20 years ago and I became the central. I know all my clients by first name. I know all my vendors. We have great relationships. All my employees come to me for all key decisions. I may feel really good about that and get a kick out of that, especially for my ego, being the knight on the shining armor on the white horse to come in and save the day.
You're the Iron Man.
I'm the Iron Man. That's right. Yeah. It sounds great, but if I ever want to even hint at selling my business to someone else, who's going to want to buy it? Because they're buying an organization that will ultimately be a shell of who I was.
But let's take that a step further, though. Or if you want to grow.
Exactly.
If you're the only person who can provide that special sauce, however you want to define it, you're limited to however many hours. And instead of capturing the value that you're making, the profits and all that, you have to work harder.
Yeah.
So and it's so much an ego thing. Or it can be so much of an ego thing. Whereas I love it, the less I have to do. Mm-hmm. And I've used this as a running joke. At our office, there's a whiteboard that says things Bob is not allowed to touch. And it's a bunch of technology stuff and they're right.
Including the whiteboard.
Including the whiteboard. No, actually, some of it's in my handwriting.
Is it really?
It absolutely is. It started as a joke.
Yeah.
But it is a way to reinforce to everybody, I'm not the person who does the day-to-day stuff anymore. I'm not that person who is the value. And my ego is fine. Mm-hmm. But that is a tough transition for a lot of people to do. We're in the ownership or leadership board.
It is. And there's another dynamic besides the limited time and energy that you have, is that limit changes as we age.
I hope.
It's already limited in your mid-30s or 40s. But when you start reaching 60, the proverbial treadmill that you try to run and keep up, you're running faster, but you're at the end of the treadmill.
Yeah.
But you're running faster to keep up. So you're starting, I mean, I've met people who are saying, what's wrong with me? I love this company. I love being the answer guy, but I can't keep up. I can't, what's wrong with me?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you. You're going through a stage of life. That's just natural. What's happening is natural.
But I would even say it doesn't matter, because from a productivity standpoint, from a natural progression of the organization, like, you can't be that single point of failure.
No, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who fool themselves into thinking they can keep it going.
Oh yeah, no.
Until one day, some magical number,
Yeah.
or magical date, they're gonna sell their company for some magical number, and they're gonna live off that. And 75% of the people were not happy with the sale of their business and how it played out.
Cool. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about from an exit strategy standpoint. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting here, and by the way, I'm not reaching 60. I'm reaching back to 60 behind me by 5 years.
You're grasping it.
Yeah. but it is one of those where I can look at my role. It's different, and it's purposefully different. I can look at as far as plans go, I don't have specific plans as far as selling the company, but I know it's a logical extension. Mm-hmm. And I also know that the goal for profitability does not run exclusively through me. Right. It runs through the team that I've developed and the additional roles and responsibilities that they get as we move forward. But where should we be looking towards to say, do I have a healthy plan to an organization who's the Gen X side of things? What type of things should they be looking to start doing now, even if they don't know when?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, good. Well, this ended quicker than I thought it was going to.
No, seriously, there is this thing called the Rainmaker's Dilemma.
Okay,
Rainmaker's Dilemma. You started a company. You were the face of the company. You were the energy behind it all.
Right.
You brought on some people because it got successful, and you had to deal with the consequences of success.
Right.
So you bring on people. They do this piece, that piece, and yet you're the one that brought in all these people. You were the rainmaker. Now, being the rainmaker, you're faced with a dilemma, because who's going to buy a company where the rainmaker is gone?
Right.
So that's the dilemma. It's a matter of shifting from being rainmaker to what is called the architect.
Okay.
Same skill set. So you're not having to be somebody you're not. You take all of that rainmaker capability and you apply it in a different way. You apply it as an architect to developing people and bringing on people, teaching them what you know, and listening to them, because you don't know it all. What you knew that worked 20 years ago.
Right.
Or even 5 years ago it worked, and it now doesn't. So I think I'm a firm believer of the synergy of the young, energetic, forgive me if you can bleep this out, but stupid energy of the second quarter.
Yeah.
There's energy, but there's no wisdom.
Okay, I'll go with that.
Now in the third and fourth quarter, there's wisdom, no energy. And the greatest fallacy of large organizations who engage in, they won't admit this, but they'll engage in ageism. They'll find a reason for the gray hair to be let go, because they're no longer relevant in their minds. Now there are some.
I'll push back on that, but in a weird way. I also think there's reverse ageism, where someone will look at the kids and go, you don't have value to add because you just have that energy, that enthusiasm.
Right.
And it's one of those where the answer is right between the two.
Absolutely. It's synergy, because you have all the energy, you have all the wisdom, you bring that together, you can create a much greater result than the sum of the parts.
But not on my yard. Get off my yard.
Not on my yard, that's right.
Absolutely.
Old fart.
No, but it's one of those where again, it gets back to what is the overall goal of the leadership of the organization at this point in time, if not to sell. Okay, we're looking to grow. Fine, you have to develop your workforce and your work group to do that. Or we're also looking, and this is another thing, we're looking to protect, because there's also that, the bus theory. You get hit by a bus. Mm-hmm. If you're still in rainmaker mode, as you call it, and you get hit by the bus, what happens? Mm-hmm. because then you have this sudden change that perhaps nobody's ready for.
I think that if there's a listener here who owns a business and does not have key person life insurance, that's step number one. In fact, this is probably recorded, so you can come back and finish this episode.
Yeah, you could.
Stop it now and go talk to your insurance agent, because what
Especially
happens,
the guy in Iowa.
That's right, especially you, Mr. Iowa.
Yeah.
What happens with the key person life insurance is the company is the beneficiary. And typically a big business or a big enough business can get $2, $3, $4 million.
Right.
And the company pays for it. The company is the beneficiary. If that person suddenly gets hit by the bus, the company has resources to hire top quality headhunter type organizations that are out there.
Right.
They do what they do very well for a price. And then you have the resources to pay for that person to come on, to entice them to be. So that's number one.
Right.
That's an easy transactional kind of thing that you can set in place and forget it just in case the bus thing happens.
Right. And I think one of the other things that goes in a slightly, it's related but slightly different, especially if you are, so for example, Simplex-IT, we are an LLC. Mm-hmm. So I am the owner. I am the one. Now, my wife is a retired nurse, and which means that when she wants me dead, she will kill me. Mm-hmm. And again, this is being recorded.
Right.
But she will inherit the company from an operational standpoint. So we've made sure, like you say, that this insurance is in place, so that she's not going to be faced with what do I have to learn that I didn't know.
Right.
And we also made sure that she is involved with the company enough so that she's got a good view of what works, what doesn't work, and we're getting more and more involved through the development of the employees and the people, so that there's less and less operationally that I'm the only one and person who knows how to do that.
There's a great book out there called The Checklist Manifesto.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep.
Great read for any leader that's involved. You think of Sully, the airline pilot.
Yep.
That saved a lot of what caused him to do that, to be able to make that decision, was the process of elimination, because checklists were made ahead of time.
Right.
The processes made it quickly. He didn't have a lot of time.
Right.
And he made this unconventional decision to land a plane full of people, a full-size plane, onto the Hudson. I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but there were a lot of people saying that's you can't do that.
Right.
You won't make it. And we have to. What's behind all that is process and procedure. Your people need to know what to do, when to do it, who's the best to do it, and why.
Right.
If you can answer all four of those in any situation, because let me just share a little bit more, because this is the passion of mine. Every organization, regardless of size.
For those of you who are just listening and not watching, he shifted in his seat.
That's right.
So the plot is about to thicken.
So every business, regardless of size, industry, or location in the world, has one thing in common. The sole proprietor, the little granny who's knitting boots and selling them on Etsy, to the Microsoft with hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. One thing in common. It's a collection of actions. Those actions are triggered by three things: milestones that your clients take, due dates, which is like payroll, and
right.
or events, which you can't predict, but you can plan for. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's every single business in existence today is a pile of actions triggered by three things. Now, you can group those into 9 business functions, which are grouped by 3. There's get the work, do the work, support the work. You're either getting the work, you're doing the work, or you're supporting the work. Getting the work is marketing and sales. Doing the work is operations. And supporting the work is accounting and finance, admin, all this other stuff. I'm boring you, I know. But the point is...
You just figured that out?
Yes. But the point of that whole thing is, if you can get every one of your actions lined up with what triggers them and what department they come from, you can set your business up so that everybody knows Who needs to do it, when, how, and why.
Okay. To sum this up, 3 actions that you think that business owners should take. Not business owners that are looking to sell right now, but just business owners in general should take that are in that Gen X group.
Get key person life insurance.
Okay.
Create a set of aspirations that you can see immersing yourself as a 75, 85-year-old.
Okay.
Put yourself 20, 30 years out in the future and then say, what do I want to be doing? Who do I want to be? What kind of time do I want? Right. What's my life look like? That's number 2. Okay. Number 3, keep watching your show. I don't know.
Pay more close attention if you're in Iowa. I have no idea how Iowa came up to this. So, okay. And Scott, if people want to reach you, what's the best way? And you've got your own podcast, right?
I do. Serve strong, finish strong.
Okay.
We talk about serving strong in terms of get your business serving strong, and then the individuals, how can we get you to finish strong? Servingstrong.com is where I'm at.
Okay, cool. And with that, this is yet another episode of BizTech Twists. I am Bob Coppage, CEO, Couchenour Geek. Scott Couchenour.
Pepsi an hour.
Thank you. Thank you once again. And just to remind you, once again, there has been identified a tremendous shortage of subscriptions online, and the internet is now tipping over. It's kind of a pyramid of itself. So we need to have those subscriptions back to get it rightly. So, and if you can't do that, at least do some likes and then do some comments and the like, because the internet, it's toppling, folks. Do your part. Catch you later.